Now, the rest of the story.
And I guess I'm done. Came down and did more of a fact-finding mission. This is what that 22B mole plow looks like in the back of the 7600. Just went through and put it on the quick hitch. Got the quick attach links on it, but I went this route because it does actually extend that back a few inches, and yes, that does help. So it's the day after Christmas, and I didn't get this thing until the Monday before. And if I came down here yesterday, maybe I'd have different results. But this more or less just turned into a fact-finding mission to see if it's going to work to the degree I want it to. I'm hoping it to. Now, as you guys can see, why I'm quitting. I only made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 passes down here in varying lengths, and the frost. There's just enough frost on the ground where it's heaving it up and making a bunch of clods, and I don't need that. I'm probably gonna have to come down here in the spring with that first harrow, that drag chain harrow we got, and try to level some of this stuff back off. This wasn't my intentions with doing the frost, but getting kind of antsy as to how warm it's been yesterday. I mean, it's really heaved right here, but this is what I'm really looking for when I did this. I'm looking to just make a slot in the ground, and if the ground wasn't froze, which we got the length of my fingers worth of frost, I would be able to make just a slot in the ground, and there's enough moisture in the ground that, see, this is what I want you guys to see. I backed in on this low-lying area, dropped it in, and that big cast ball here on the back, you can see where I dropped it in the ice, and it's actually going down into the tunnel I made. Good, bad things. Well, problem I have is I didn't make an exit point. My exit point is honestly over there. Problem is, because I'm doing this with the frost in the ground, I just don't want to make any more of a mess than I have to. And for how warm it was yesterday, I was feeling optimistic that I would be able to come down on this lower ground where there is more moisture in the soil, and maybe it wasn't quite so damp. If I could do this the way I want to do this, if I was just making that slot in the soil and giving that water an exit path, I would probably come down here, start about as close to the hill as I could. There is the water trap, and actually make a bunch of cuts up where Kevin got stuck, and they come back this way and just go the whole length of this area, because you can see where we used to cut from there over, this dry enough where we can make it. And then last year, because it was a drier year, from here over, we were able to make, I was able to hit it with the rotary motor after rotary mower after second cut, and then for third cut, I went through and I was able to make it. I got a lot of that material off. The owners said that they used to make 100% of this. This past year, I have made 100% of this down here, and what this is doing is, water is heavy. I mean, this has been entirely flooded before, and water does compact the soil. And even just going through and hitting these areas that the water either isn't able to drain down through or drain away from, I'm hoping that my intents of even buying that was to open up all this ground that I made 100% of last fall, September, and actually be able to make it, ideally, all 3 cuttings if I'm able to make 3 cuttings, at the very least 2 of the 3 cuttings. But that makes me feel pretty good knowing that it is doing what I wanted it to do. That's going to remain there all winter. So I came down here in December. We still have all of winter to look forward to, but my intentions are in the spring making these couple of cuts through the soil is going to allow this to maybe dry out where I can come down and go through it, because I'm going to head home and put that thing in the back of the machine shed and forget about it for a couple months. Benefits of draining the soil, yes. The disadvantage is I got these big clumps of soil that I can't just drive through with the disc bind. So I go through and I make first cut. I have the disc bind picked all the way up and tilted back because I'm trying to leave as much stubble as I can, because when you're doing grass, the grass actually shoots back up out of the stem that you're leaving. And I know you guys can't see it, but I can actually see the water flowing down there. I don't know if you can see just the tip of my finger. Water's actually flowing down through that. So it was a bit of a pain to get this single shank ripper. I could have made one, but I knew this is exactly what I wanted, so why would you not at least try to locate, get down, at least try to locate what you're looking for. Otherwise, I saw online a guy made one where he had just a single shank, like Farm and Fleet brand ripper. It really wasn't anything to brag about, but he didn't have it on a huge tractor either. And then he just had 5 feet of a heavy log chain, and I already tried to cover it up. I brought up, when I picked it up out of the ground, I had a big chunk here. I drove over it just to try to smash it down. We'll see how much this settles by next spring. I mean, this is soft ground, but that is one of 2 concerns I have down here. One of 3. Number 1, number 2, number 3 is actually where we cross from the upper and lower bottom. I'm probably going to make 1 pass through there, and then I actually had an appointment I'm supposed to be at in like an hour or 2. Not even that crud. I think I gave myself an hour and 10 minutes. But this is all it is. You get this wider shank. It does help make that that slot in the ground, which is really all I want. If I could do this properly, all I would do is you wouldn't even be able to tell that I'm going through the soil. All I'm doing is making a cut through it. I'm making that poor man's tile hole through it so the water can drain away. And if and when it'll happen again, if we get a bunch of rain in the summer, XYZ time of the year, or we just get a couple 3-inch rains, that low spot up here, that actually had water sitting in it during second cut. I almost got stuck, but spraying with the 46, I could actually bring this handy tool down and drop it in, back up to them as much as I dare, just like I did with this one. Drop it in and give the water somewhere to go. I mean, all together, I think this is like 5 or 7 acres, because it actually goes from up here this way, and then it actually tapers off. So it's about the widest point is where we're standing at. And then after it gets past this low spot here, it tapers over, and then there's about 100 feet from the trees out that way where it kind of tapers up, because there's another field road right, and you can't even see it with all the trees. It's right up through there to get up to the other field. So more or less just knowing that I can at least back over. I got a drainage way back there, knowing that it's sticking out back far enough of the rear tires, I can back over a low spot and then start driving. I have a couple low-lying areas here that were originally here. Oh, they're up farther. That go from the river across, that I guess used to be here for years and years. But if I could go through and just drop it in and drive up or drive across these spots, I'd say it's a big win. All I gotta do is be able to make one cutting off of all this again, and I'll make my money back. I mean, just the area that I cleaned up, that I haven't been able to make in previous years. All I gotta do is make one cutting and I'll make my money back. So I think it was a worthwhile investment, and I think what we're seeing now is the water is still kind of flowing, but it's backed up. So what happened is my drainage way, it's probably full of water now, and now it has nowhere to go. So my problem is I have a hard time wanting to do too many more of these, because all it is making more of a mess to clean up in the spring. So if I would have done that right, yeah, I actually would have had an exit point or an end point for that where this water could actually drain to. I've seen enough examples where 24 hours later, assuming it wasn't froze, that would be completely gone. So another advantage to it is even if you don't have the end points here, if you're dragging it through drier areas of the field that do tend to dry out better, it can go both ways, where you're looking at letting the water go to those areas where it'll drain away and dry out and allow these areas to become accessible, or you can make the areas that have been dry start collecting water and just make a mess. It's a learning curve. It's learning as I go, because pretty much nobody I've talked to about that thing has any idea what it is. It's like a New Zealand, Australia kind of a thing, is pretty much what I keep finding. Because if I could have bought the one I truly wanted, it was made in New Zealand, and it was actually a longer piece, so it was what, 2 or 3 feet out behind the tractor, and it was hydraulically raise and lower your shank, so that way you could drop it. Actually, they were more for getting up underneath single strand electrical wires. So I don't know, kind of really don't splurge on stuff for myself. A lot of the stuff I buy are stuff to improve farming practices, I guess. So well, that's what I got. Hopefully we can try it again this spring, because I am going to be bringing it back down here this spring and trying to do a more appropriate job with it. At least I'm not sitting here scratching my head all winter wondering if it's going to work. So thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Take care. Take it easy. Keep in touch. I'll talk to you guys later.